New exclusive videos are waiting for you on Boosty. There is currently a 20% promotion on all subscription levels. You can support me and follow the link to subscribe to Boosty. Enjoy watching. Description: Don't be jealous of me and don't doubt me. If I'm with you, then I don't need anyone else, the girl tells him indignantly. But he knows for sure that he won't be able to not be jealous of her. She's too beautiful and young, and many people want to take advantage of this, so he will be jealous and will simply try not to doubt her. However, these Uzumaki are so flighty, and the Uchihas are so jealous. Part 1. Mada-san, why are you so sad? A cheerful child's voice made the thoughtful guy look up from his papers. He didn't want to answer the question, but he knew for sure that this girl wouldn't leave him alone until she got what she wanted. Uzumaki, I'm not sad, I'm thoughtful, the little girl was, although not entirely, but still pleased with this phrase. Making a funny face, she ran away screaming and yelling to her best friend, Sasuke. He was already waiting for her, and they went to play as usual, arguing. They are only 5 years old, but they are already so noisy. It is scary to even imagine what will happen when these two grow up. Most likely they will become husband and wife. They are perfect for each other, and their families are friends. I wonder why he has to hang around here now, in the middle of all this hoopla, and be distracted by all these noisy kids. Oh, right to leave. It's not polite, especially when we have guests. Show at least a little bit of manners, Madara. That's exactly what Mikoto said. Well, he stayed, what can you do? However, for some reason no one thinks about the fact that he needs to prepare for exams, and the noise does not contribute to this. There was a cracking sound, the handle broke. Mada-san! Oh no! Wake up, Mada-san, you'll sleep away your whole life. This misunderstanding did not stop screaming. And it seems to me that it's only lunch, Uchiha replied sleepily, turning over on his side. He had worked all night and had only recently been able to come home and go to bed, and this little thing was preventing him from getting a good rest. The brunette would have time to eat later, and if not, no problem, he could live without food somehow, unlike sleep. There you see! She climbed right on top of him, puffing indignantly. You're missing out on the most amazing ramen in the world that Kachan made, and then Madara, I figured out how to get rid of an annoying child. Naruto, let's agree on this. The black-eyed man opened one eye in order to see the interested and curious face of the blonde. You let me sleep, and I'll give you my portion of ramen, okay? He was absolutely sure that it would work, because it always worked, but not this time. The girl puffed herself up and assumed an important air. As far as is possible for a 7-year-old child, she folded her arms across her chest and looked at him as if he were a man who had broken some very important agreement. Or as if he were a complete idiot. Madara-san, the fact that she called him by his full name did not bode well. Because Naruto had never called him that before. Are you trying to bribe me? You won't succeed, I'm on the side of the law today. The child finished importantly, and a kind grin appeared on the Uchiha's face by itself. And how much did they pay you, guardian of order? The man asked sarcastically, looking at this child with amusement. She was even more entertaining than his nephew. As many as 5 servings. Namikaze Uzumaki answered without the slightest bit of embarrassment. Mentally whistling and clearly realizing that he would not be able to outbid that guardian, Madara was forced to stand up and pick up the joyful Naruko. Otherwise, he simply did not know yet that he would have to feed her by hand. That was the agreement with Miko-san and Kachan. Since no one could cope with the role of alarm clock for this workaholic except her, he either sent everyone else away, or mostly just did not open the locked door. How did this fox manage to open it? A secret of the universe, but a fact remains a fact. You can't send a child away, and the door didn't become an obstacle for her, even when the lock was changed 3 times. And it didn't work to scare Naruto, she simply did not feel even the slightest discomfort next to him. The only one who could boast the same Hashirama Senju, with whom this hurricane was surprisingly similar. At least in character. Mada-san. You will work your whole life and not notice how you die. 2 hurricanes flew into the house, but the second one was afraid to disturb his uncle. He knew very well how terrible he was when angry. Although she saw it too. But instead of running away and hiding in fear, she hit him with her little foot, saying that she was not afraid and his screams were in vain. That's exactly what she said. You can tell whose upbringing, what bright wishes, Naruto, the man answers, lazily sipping coffee. He's already used to it. She crept up behind him and looked straight at the reports of her subordinates. And coffee, by the way, is harmful, she says cheerfully and kisses him on the cheek. Everything is as usual, nothing changes. Sasuke, do you have anything to eat? Purrs Sasuke, always hanging out with that beast. He thinks, looking after the girl who ran away, who just returned from school. And why does she always show up here exactly when he does? And even if he will never admit it, Madara is almost happy about it. Almost. Mada-san, do you know that sleeping at the table and with the window open not the best idea? A gentle girl's voice whispered quietly right next to Uchiha's ear. At first he didn't even realize who it was. His first thought was where this impudent person he hadn't invited came from in his house. And just as he was about to say everything he thought about this stranger, he opened his eyes and saw a cute, slightly angular figure with long blonde ponytails and big blue eyes, in which discontent was splashing. What are you doing at my place, Naruko? Propping his head up with his hand, he croaked, as he had been sick for a week already, and with a flourish. What do you mean, what? I'll treat you, Mada-san. The girl smiled, scratching the back of her head. Girl. On this thought Madara hung up. What the hell kind of girl is this? This is little Uzumaki, a hurricane, a child in whose but they forgot not an all, no, they forgot a whole propeller there. She is not a girl, she is his personal kind of hemorrhoid in the person of a small and funny girl. Yes, the only one who can pick any locks and get into his room or apartment. And who sent you, Naruto? The man asked. He knew for sure that she would have been too lazy to come here, which meant that she was bribed with ramen. Yeah, what kind of girl is this? A very ordinary child. The girl pouted, offended, because this time she really did come here for no reason. Just because her beloved Mada-san got sick and, as always, neglected his illness. She just wanted to help and take care of the sick man, because she herself knows how bad it is to be sick alone. It becomes sad, bad, and also scary, so whenever Uzumaki herself was sick, one of her parents or friends was there. She didn't like loneliness at all. Nobody sent me, Mada-san, I came myself. She told the pure truth, but judging by the look on the owner of the apartment, he didn't believe her at all. If I do it myself, then do it myself. Madara spoke conciliatorily, simply because this girl would stand to the last, and he was already feeling unwell to argue with her. Naruto was quite satisfied with this answer, although she knew that he didn't believe her at all. The high school girl ran to the kitchen to get all the food and medicine she had bought to treat this stern Uchiha. Oh, and she also needed to tell him that he would have guests coming for dinner. Hashirama and Tobirama Senju, with whom the girl herself surprisingly quickly got along. Even with Tobirama Baka. Sasuke, go wake up your Aji-san, otherwise he'll really work like this his whole life, Mikoto ordered, already setting the table for dinner. Today Madara came to visit them, although he worked all day anyway. The subordinates can't take a step without him. Send Naruto there, I'm not suicidal, the guy answered, peacefully dozing on a comfortable sofa. Naruto is not here now, the woman remarked cheerfully, since it was indeed a difficult task. Wake up Uchiha Madara, almost always fell to her. Naturally, the Uzumaki are so stubborn that until they achieve their goal they will not give up or retreat, which is why Naruko always coped with the task assigned to her perfectly. So call her, Sasuke said sleepily, still on the edge between sleep and reality. What, straight from Greece? The entire Namake's family recently went on vacation to the sea, plus to solve several problems in Minato's company and negotiate with business partners. Who did she leave me for? Uchiha asked himself, staggering and yawning. He went to the second floor. To his uncle's room, to invite him to dinner and temporarily fulfill the duties of his girlfriend. Only he was not immortal, unlike Uzumaki. Why are you so thoughtful, Naruko-chan? Mikoto asked with a smile Uchiha. Today was another, family, dinner, to which the Namake's Uzumaki family, Senju and the entire Uchiha family came. They gathered in the Uzumaki house and now everyone is having a nice conversation, and someone is wishing death on someone, Madara and Tobirama well, someone is trying to calm them down. But there was one odd thing. One of the loudest people gathered here was unusually thoughtful and silent. Even Madara and Tobirama were distracted from the most interesting activity called incinerate the enemy with a glance, and looked with interest at the unusually quiet blonde. I wonder what could have happened to make her so quiet? Hashirama's friend asked himself. I was asked out on a date, the blue-eyed girl said, completely calmly and clearly in some kind of trance. It seemed that this proposal was too unpredictable for her. At that moment, the entire female audience became alarmed and began asking who this guy was. But for some reason, Madara was not in the mood for joy. Although no, it was worth finding out the name of this suicide bomber in order to wring his neck later. Naturally, since he dared to lay his eyes on Naruto. On his Naruto. Just as he was about to say something in a murderously cold voice, he suddenly came to his senses. What is he thinking? Naruko has never been and never will be his. She grew up before his eyes, he remembers her from the cradle. No, of course he could deceive himself by saying that these are purely paternal feelings, like Minato, who actively spreads bloodlust, but deceiving himself it's low, only cowards do that, and he didn't consider himself one. Madara treats this little girl not as a daughter or a muro, but as his property. As his woman. But what nonsense! She can hardly be called a girl, let alone a woman. However, despite the fact that there can be nothing between them, at least because of the difference of 15 years. But he will still break the neck of the one who asked her out. Mada-san, how do you like me? Naruko was twirling in front of him in a new outfit that she was planning to wear on a date. For some reason, the man never broke that impudent boy's neck. Probably because he didn't want to go to jail, then someone would lay eyes on his blonde. Although sooner or later she would lay her eyes on someone. But that would all happen later. To Frank, Uchiha said, although the outfit was not at all like that, he just hoped that she would be very late with changing clothes, the guy would leave, and she would return home. Ah, well then that will do. And with that phrase, the happy Uzumaki simply ran away from the Uchiha ancestral home, leaving Madara to ponder over what just happened. Part 2. Madara was angry. Very angry. This brat was inviting Naruko on a 4th date already, and she literally came back from each one beaming. Her eyes were shining, her cheeks were flushed, her lips were constantly smiling. It was infuriating. How it infuriated him, and it also seemed to him that after each new date she was exposing herself more and more, starting to wear more and more revealing outfits. Uchiha somehow didn't think to connect this with the fact that summer would soon come and it was getting warmer every day. He walked around angry for a long time until he decided to take a decisive step. He will follow Uzumaki and this suitor of hers. Yes, it is wrong, disgusting and low, but in love as in war all means are good. It took him a week to admit to himself that he had simply fallen in love. Of course, how could he, Uchiha Madara, a confirmed bachelor, the terror of girls' hearts, to fall in love with some little girl so easily? Even if she was an extremely charming, funny and cheerful little girl, even if she was still a little awkward. This didn't spoil her at all. Although, if you think about her appearance, she took the best from her parents. A round face, eye shape, lips and figure from the mother, and the color of extremely beautiful eyes and hair the color of sun rays from the father. Yes, Naruko could be called the ideal child of her parents, if she took the character from Minato. But no, in this direction the Uzumaki genes turned out to be much stronger. That evening, at 7 o'clock, Uchiha put on his favorite tuxedo and tied his long hair into a ponytail. He walked behind the girl at a decent distance, so that she would definitely not notice him. And then the girl approached a nice cafe near the amusement park. There he saw several guys, one of whom was his nephew Sasuke. He had seen the others in photographs, and he had seen them often next to these two. Therefore, after thinking back a bit, he finally remembered their names. Uzumaki Karen was present there. Naruko's cousin, Shikamaru Nara, Kiba Inuzuka, Sai Ino Yamanaka, Hinata Hyuga, her older brother, whose name he had forgotten, and Sakura Haruno, his nephew's girlfriend. Quite an interesting group had gathered, but he couldn't understand what a date had to do with it. After watching the noisy youth for another 10 minutes, Madara realized that he had been fooled and there was no date and no plan. It seemed that this whole performance was played out for Mikoto and Kushina. In a fairly upbeat mood, the man got into his car and drove home. After all, he still had work for at least half the night. The work stretched into the night, and would have continued in the morning if he hadn't received a phone call at 8 o'clock. A trifle, the contact text read, along with a photo of Naruko's orange-painted face. It was strange, since she rarely called and only in extreme cases. What could possibly happen at 8 o'clock in the morning? Madara didn't understand, but he picked up the phone. "Good afternoon, Mada-san!" A cheerful voice came from the receiver. "What's the matter, Naruto?" Uchiha was nervous and tired, so there was no time for long conversations. "Pfft, how rude!" "Well, okay, the point is that you're meeting me today at 11 o'clock at the Yorikobi Cafe." At this point the girl hung up, knowing full well that if she hadn't done so, the brunette would have been indignant for a very long time, with relish, and might not even have come. But he didn't even refuse, under the pretext of eternal work. The workaholic himself was even glad about it. He was already incredibly tired of working, and going to a cafe with a girl would be a pretty good rest. Although he couldn't even guess why he was invited. Deciding not to bother his head with this, Madara went back to work. He still had 2 whole hours to work. "Naruto, Aji-san will kill us for this," the guy responded in a gloomy voice, lying on the couch and eating a tomato. "He won't do anything to us. In the end, he's to blame for everything himself. It wasn't me who looked after myself and literally showed with my whole appearance that. I'll wring that bastard's neck." The girl was full of energy, and also very hungry. She was always hungry when she was nervous. "Moreover, if anything happens, we have Itachi on standby. And you don't feel sorry for Anai-san at all?" "I thought you had a good relationship." Uchiha responded the same way, since he understood that he would get it too. And he was not burning with desire to see Madara in anger, but apparently no one asks him. "Oh, come on!" Uzumaki was literally glowing with happiness. Finally, she was noticed as more than just a small pest and a constant nuisance. "Naruto, you're only 17 years old, and he, for you to know," and then he froze. "And how old is his uncle?" 32, the blonde said with confidence, wondering how you could not know how old your uncle was. "That's right, there's a 15-year difference between you," the brunette tried weakly to reach his friend's mind, clearly understanding that it was impossible. He had been trying to do this since he was 5 and hadn't succeeded yet. So who was it that pulled his tongue when he was a child, when he said that Naruko seemed to have fallen in love with his Aji-san? Namikaze then froze, thought and agreed that yes, it seemed that she really did fall in love with Mada-san. And if so, then when she grows up she will marry him, which means she will sacredly remain faithful to him until she becomes so beautiful that he falls in love with her too. Sasuke didn't understand at all how Madara himself hadn't figured this out yet. Literally everyone knew about it. Mikoto, Kushina, Itachi, Obito, Izuna, Mito, a whole bunch of Uzumaki's friends, even Hashirama Senju and his brother were the only ones who knew. They were the only ones who didn't know and who were ordered not to say anything. Minato, Fugaku and Madara himself. And then, this very thing happened. Uchiha himself, Madara, literally radiated waves of hatred and was ready to lock Naruko under lock and key. According to Mikoto-san and Itachi, this was a sure sign that the Uchiha had fallen in love. Plus, his possessive looks and guardianship gave him away to the experienced Uchiha and Uzumaki matchmakers who were actively bringing the two together. It was scary to even think what would happen when the head of the Namikaze family found out about this. "And what did you want from me?" Sitting in a cafe at the appointed time, the brunette calmly sipped espresso and looked with slight interest at the girl who was eating strawberry ice cream and washing it down with a milkshake. Yes, he would probably never understand this Uzumaki. "Well, I just have a few questions for you, Mada-san," the blonde answered a little slyly, licking the ice cream spoon. Uchiha's left eye twitched nervously, but the man immediately pulled himself together. She wasn't doing this on purpose. "Which ones?" Madara asked, raising one eyebrow. "Well, for starters, why were you following me yesterday?" Innocently blinking his blue eyes, he clarifies this something. "Crap!" The black-eyed man curses mentally, realizing that he got caught somewhere. "The only question is where?" He definitely saw that the girl didn't turn around. Maybe one of her friends gave him away? Maybe, but they probably said he wasn't stalking her, but just wandering around. And anyway, where did she get the idea that he was following her? Why do I have such thoughts? Maybe I was just passing by. Aha, so you don't deny that you were there? The blue-eyed girl exclaimed triumphantly. I won't tell you how I know, everyone has their own sources. But admit it, you were following me, in principle, there is no point in denying it, this little prankster has already made her conclusions and they were even partially correct. Even if so, so what? He continued to calmly finish his coffee. Why did you do that? Just a little bit more, and she'll expose him. And even if not, she'll still squeeze him, whether she's an Uzumaki or not, in the end? As an elder, I was worried that you wouldn't be fooled by some guy. Madara hesitated a little, swallowing the obscene word. He still remembers Mikoto's slaps on the back of the head, because he sometimes cursed in front of the children. This calm woman has a surprisingly heavy hand, thank Kami that he got slapped by her, otherwise if it had been Kushina-san. He doesn't even want to think about the consequences, otherwise she wouldn't hesitate to hit him over the head with a frying pan. Do you know that you are a liar, Mada-san? Naruko muttered resentfully. This was not at all what she wanted to hear. Where did you get that from, Naruto? This meaningless conversation was beginning to tire the man. He didn't like empty chatter and preferred short and to the point. But for some reason his best friend and, if I may say so, his beloved, adored this kind of pastime. Uzumaki's great patience came to an end and she decided to listen to her Ka-chan's advice. If a man doesn't make contact for a long time, you have to take him by the balls and force him to do it. For example, I myself forced your father to ask me out, since he still couldn't bring himself to do it because I had a rich and prosperous family behind me, and no one stood behind him. And anyway, what can an orphan have at 15? But it's okay, I forced him, Tebane. And now you see what heights he's achieved. Mada-san, why can't you just go and say that you're jealous? Indignation was pouring out of the blonde's head. Why can't you just come up to me and say that you just like me? For example, I'm not embarrassed at all and can confidently say that I'm in love with you, but the first step should be taken by a man. So why are you, Dadabao, still hesitating? Make your first move already. To say that Madara I was stunned means to say nothing. He was in deep shock, because he did not expect this. But he would not be an Uchiha if he did not come to his senses quickly. The first step, then? It's not hard for me to take all two. Smirking at his thoughts, Madara simply pulled the raging girl to himself and kissed her. Well, why hesitate? He's not one of those who will beat around the bush for long, he's not a boy anymore. They were very lucky that they were sitting in a separate booth and no one could hear this little skirmish. Otherwise it would have been awkward. Although Uchiha didn't care about public opinion, he didn't want any problems. And there was no need for extra witnesses, they take longer to clean. You will be only mine, Naruko. Uzumaki, the black-eyed man said in his hoarse voice. Yes, you're welcome, you've probably never encountered a pain in the ass like me, Madara. The girl said slyly, but no less happily, pulling the man towards her once more. She somehow didn't even notice how she ended up on the same couch with her beloved man, and not opposite. But it doesn't matter. This most unbearable of the Uchihas finally made the first move. Hallelujah! Namikaze rejoiced inside, smiling slyly into the kiss. She would still give him a fun life in the Uzumaki style. Part 3. 2 years flew by somehow quickly and unnoticed. Uzumaki and Uchiha were constantly arguing and then making up. When they were arguing, everything was flying. Madara had already managed to get hit on the head with a frying pan more than once, but he had also brought Naruko to tears more than once. No, she was not a crybaby at all, she was just particularly emotional at some moments, and could not contain her emotions, because this man knew how to say extremely offensive and angry words in a fit of emotion. It is worth noting that they made peace no less violently and emotionally. When Minato and Fugaku found out about this relationship, it was very noisy. The usual calm somehow left Namikaze. He did not plan that his daughter's first man would be 15 years older than her. He assumed that she might start dating Sasuke, whom she had known since childhood, and Niji. Hyuga, who has long made it clear that he doesn't quite have a soft spot for the blonde, or another best friend of Naruko Gaara. In extreme cases, there were Itachi, Kabuto, and Sasori, with whom the girl also communicated quite well. But Madara? Uchiha Madara? No, his life definitely didn't prepare him for this. At all. Fugaku was more reserved. He just said something strong a couple of times and calmed down. In the end, it wasn't that bad. Madara wasn't a boy anymore, his hormones weren't playing tricks on him, and if he decided to take such a step as asking a 17-year-old girl out on a date, then everything is serious, and the wedding issue is temporary. If Uchiha falls in love once and for all, and this union will be beneficial for their families. Strengthening the ties between the companies was planned anyway, even if Sasuke and Naruko were planning to marry. But it will do. However, Minato couldn't think like that either. Such a difference between his daughter and her chosen one was frightening. And he knew this Uchiha too well from his youth. An inveterate bachelor, a womanizer, and a workaholic. On the other hand, the time of his wild youth had long passed, and he had seen his look at his daughter, so he could be sure he won't hurt her, and if anyone dares, he will bury the condemned man alive himself. Yes, they both have very difficult characters, but who knows? Anything can happen in life, because he himself knows several such strange couples, but they live happily, albeit noisily. Moreover, he could be sure that he would entrust his treasure to the hands of an experienced man who could take care of her and protect her from many mistakes, and not to an inexperienced and flighty boy. Besides, the blonde did not want to anger Kushina, who was all for this union. He did not consider himself a suicide, and his sense of self-preservation worked properly. Fortunately. Although, even if Namikaze was against it, I wouldn't have been able to do anything. Naruto was too willful and would have done as her heart told her. Just like her mother, she once did the same with her parents, and their order not to communicate with this ragamuffin of no family. In the end, everything turned out well, and he is very glad that his wife turned out to be much more stubborn and rebellious than he was. So why not let your daughter make her choice? She has long loved, as it turned out, Madara, and if you see his look at the girl, you can immediately understand that they adore each other. Let them quarrel and argue often, but without it there is no way. Two temperamental and stubborn personalities converged on one territory, and considering quite different characters and views on life, then even more so. And comparatively they live quite peacefully, thanks to the experience, relative calm and patience of the adult Uchiha. It seems that he really will be the ideal match for his daughter. In the end, everyone accepted this relationship normally, and some even accepted it very happily, except for Tobirama. Senju. He couldn't stand this impudent Uchiha, he couldn't stand Uchihas in general, but this one especially strongly. But he liked Naruko, not as a girl, no, rather as a sweet and stupid Imuto who needs to be watched like a hawk. Although the way she called him irritated him quite a lot. Tobirama Baka. He couldn't understand at all why he looked like a fool in her eyes. But it was useless to be offended by this, she gave nicknames to almost everyone, so everyone was used to it. What is one Zuzu, which she called Azuna? Why exactly no one knew, but it sounded cute and somehow girlish. Because of this the albino even came to terms with his nickname. Compared to Zuzu, it was quite tolerable and even not bad. But despite everything, the stupid Imuto did not want to listen to him, stubbornly believing that Madara, the one she needs. She has been saying this since she was 5 years old, and it is he who, Tobirama, was the second person to find out about her crush on that bastard. The first was Uchiha Sasuke, not the best person in Naruto's circle. According to Senju, of course, he was an Uchiha, but much better than her suitor. Why this secret was entrusted to him, he did not know, but despite the fact that he was against this idiotic love for the black-eyed man, he was still overcome with pride and even some joy. After all, for a little girl, the secret of who she likes is very important, and she entrusted it to him. And this showed her level of trust, even despite the slightly offensive nickname with the prefix Baka. But then his worst nightmare happened. His worst enemy noticed the girl's sympathy, and even reciprocated. The blonde really wanted to strangle this bastard, but here's the problem: Naruto won't forgive, and no matter how offensive it was, He was weaker than Madara and his chances of winning were slim. It's a pity, a great pity. In the end, he could only accept it, but Tobirama was sure that sooner or later they would break up anyway. Two different in temperament, and none of them are ready to bend over for each other. And let somewhere inside, something stubbornly whispered Uchiha won't let her go, and she'll never leave him. At least not for long, and so going to her parents for a week or two during a particularly strong quarrel is quite possible. Red-Eyed decided to shut up the inner voice and firmly believe that this relationship would not last long. The most offensive thing for him was when his stupid Imuto moved to live in the apartment of this scoundrel. Now she will spend much more time with him than with Senju himself. At these moments, slight jealousy and possessiveness woke up. After all, she was very important to him. The one and only, silly, bright and eternally cheerful Uzumaki was his personal son, who for some reason recently wanted to marry him off. There's no point in letting such genetic material go to waste. However, Tobirama wasn't worried about this. No one can stand his terrible character, not even a saint. After sighing heavily, lamenting and saying that they were completely unsuitable for each other, the albino temporarily calmed down, but still muttered at the end, what she can always turn to him. For which he was tightly hugged and even earned a kiss on the cheek. Oh, this unbearable Uzumaki, Part 4. The first year of their relationship went well. He worked, she was finishing school and preparing to enter university, without having decided what to do. Madara told her that she could go where she wanted, and not where they would pay more. He would still be the one providing for the family, and she would have personal funds, as well as full access to the family budget. Uchiha saw no point in hiding anything from his future wife. After all, they still had to live together their whole lives, but he still had to tell Uzumaki that when she turned 20, he would take her to the registry office and do Naruto Uchiha. The man already had a plan for the next 5 years. He did not like surprises, especially unpleasant ones. That is why he preferred to plan his life in advance, which he always did. Until now, there were no strong deviations from it. They were introduced by the noisy Uzumaki, who he did not plan to fall in love with in the word, at all. This was an unforeseen circumstance, although very pleasant. But this won't happen again, Madara was sure. He was not going to change all the plans because of such an incident. He would just rewrite it a little and that's it. But somehow everything went completely wrong. This intolerable female individual acts unpredictably, and the whole plan goes to hell. And the worst thing, that he liked it. He liked living without knowing what would happen the next minute, without knowing what this girl would do next and what she would come up with. He honestly tried to fight it at first, but over time he simply gave up on the matter and plunged into a whirlpool of events. The life of the Uchiha became very nervous and extremely unpredictable. First of all, the subordinates received, and secondly, Hashirama. However, despite this, he was happy for his friend, because now someone would be able to tolerate his unbearable character, and would even be able to make him take a break from work. All that was left was to dump Tobirama, and everything would be fine. Then he could relax and enjoy his own family life. And then Mito-chan had already begun to express her dissatisfaction, and she was a hot-tempered woman. She could get a lot, and it would hurt. Returning from work, Uchiha saw his sweetheart cooing sweetly with Sasuke. And then bad thoughts began to overwhelm him. But if you think about it, they spend a lot of time together, too much. And they've known each other since they were babies, have been friends their whole lives and have always been inseparable. Naruto often hugs the guy, walks with him by the hand, and sometimes even cooks for him. The man began to be overwhelmed by rage and jealousy. He himself once thought that they would make a wonderful couple and that, most likely, when they grew up, they would get married. No, and once again no, he cannot allow this. Naruto is only his and he will not allow anyone, not even his own nephew, to take her away from him. Getting out of the car, the brunette approached the couple sitting on the bench. A murderous aura emanated from him and Sasuke fell silent mid-sentence, staring in horror at his uncle, who was as evil as 1,000 devils. "Mommies," he said quietly, slowly crawling to the other end of the bench to increase the distance between them. Mikoto's son's sense of self-preservation worked perfectly, and now literally screamed that it was time to run and get as far away as possible. Uzumaki seemed not to notice this. continuing to enthusiastically talk about something of her own, not even bothering about whether anyone was listening to her. The girl simply liked to talk, and everything else was not so important. Naruto, the friend addressed Uzumaki, not taking his eyes off the potential killer. What? The blonde finally stopped chattering. Sasuke pointed his finger at Madara in a completely indecent manner, and the girl, following the direction of the limb, turned around. A smile blossomed on her lips, because she had not seen her man all day and missed him terribly. The girl jumped up and threw herself on his neck. All righteous, or not so much, Uchiha's anger went away somewhere. Only humility appeared, and he obediently hugged the girl around the waist. "You're earlier than usual today, Madara," the blue-eyed girl noted cheerfully. "And I started to pester Sasuke out of boredom, because you're not around, and I'm bored alone. Yes, I decided to leave work early, but despite everything, the piercing and irritated gaze was still directed at his nephew." The latter felt somehow uneasy about this. He wanted to get away from here as soon as possible and not run into this undoubtedly scary man, at least for a couple of days. So that he would cool down, so that he would not forget. Uchiha terribly vindictive. Having quickly said goodbye to everyone present, the guy hurried away, under the mocking gaze of Aji-san. This whole situation did not go unnoticed by the main reason for all of this. A smug smile appeared on her face. After all, it was nice when you were jealous, and she buried her nose in Madara's neck, giggling slightly. "Let's go home already," Naruko pulled away. "I made dinner, my jealous one." "What is there?" the brunette admitted, shrugging his shoulders, still holding Uzumaki by the waist, and headed into the house. Despite all this, he will still keep an eye on these two, because if anything he'll skin Sasuke alive, and he'll also tell Fugaku and Itachi, and they'll add to that. Because the Uchiha's relatives, chosen ones, are inviolable. This unspoken rule is followed by everyone, no one is an exception. However, there are still a few suspicious individuals who hang around his Naruto, and who should be watched so that they don't let go of their hands, thoughts, and eyes. Part 5. Sasuke hadn't been around much since then, but Madara was still on guard. He was extremely annoyed by the close contact between the two, but he couldn't forbid Uzumaki anything. She was too stubborn, and also hot-tempered. She would get offended and go to her parents for a week or two, and then she would have to ask for forgiveness. The last thing Uchiha disliked the most. For him it was humiliating, and even the fact that he was apologizing, in essence, to one of the people dearest to him. "I didn't change anything." It was humiliating. The man did not like to admit his mistakes, at least not in public. But this is Naruto. With her, all principles go to hell, and she does everything as she wants and what she wants. The latter was annoying. The brunette even tried to fight it, but each time he experienced defeat and the whole action ended in a huge scandal. The last one, she was upset with him for a whole month. The first 2 weeks she didn't leave her parents' apartment at all and didn't even pick up the phone, didn't answer text messages. The last 2, practically at every meeting, something heavy flew at him. They made peace, naturally, just as grandly, but already in a tete-a-tete setting. Now Madara was more annoyed by one impudent guy with a pineapple on his head. He saw a couple of times how this Nara brazenly groped his Uzumaki. He dared to take her by the waist. And let's forget that he, along with Niji, Gaara and Sasuke, tried to teach this individual to skate, which the latter did not do very well. So they all caught her in turns, so that she would not accidentally kill herself. "Shikamaru, hold me!" the blonde screamed, falling once again. In the end, the guy whose turn was it to teach the girl now? "I got tired of this noisy woman, constantly grabbing her collar or something else, and they end up flying onto the ice together." So, Pineapple Head just took her hand and tried to hold her just so as not to fall. However, this is Uzumaki. As a result, they fell again, finding themselves in a very compromising position. The blue-eyed one was lying on her back below, and Nara was hanging over her from above, kneeling. "Don't let Aji-san see this, Kami-sama," said Sasuke, sitting on a bench in the company of 2 classmates. There was a deathly silence and sympathetic glances towards the brunette. "He's behind me, right?" "Yeah," nodded his head to Sabaku. "Hello, Aji-san, nice to see you," he turned to his relative. "Sasuke, It seemed that this intonation sent shivers down all three of their spines. Out of horror, naturally. It was her request. In the hope that they would leave him alone and go deal with these two. Your own skin is more valuable in any case, Uchiha said, glancing at the couple out of the corner of his eye. They were barely getting up from the snow, falling again. In short, they were completely screwed. Clear, the same frightening intonations, and the terrifyingly calm Madara walks towards the rink itself. She will take revenge on you. Better her than him, Niji. I wouldn't be so sure about that. Gaara, who knew for sure, put in his 2 cents. Naruto knows how to take revenge worse than all the Uchiha put together, no matter how terrifying they are. In the meantime, they are about to witness family squabbles, in the spirit of Hulk crush break, since the evil Uzumaki is always for destruction. And now, she is just angry because her chosen one does not trust her. It seems that the girl no longer finds anything pleasant in the jealousy of her beloved. And she can be understood. Part 6. Mada, the blonde said, hugging her man from behind and looking curiously at the laptop monitor. Unfortunately, there were only some numbers, and Uzumaki was very weak in them. But why don't you tell me that you love me? She asked, puffing out her cheeks. I think I told you about this already. Without looking up from the monitor, the brunette calmly remarked. If anything changes, I'll let you know. He finished with a chuckle. In response to this, Naruko pouted in an offended manner, sliding down the Uchiha's back. Even without seeing her face, Madara was sure she now puffed out her cheeks comically and stuck out her lovely lips, offended. Turning around on his chair, he lifted the girl, who had not expected such a turn of events, and sat her on his lap. Have you already decided where you will apply? The man changed the subject, burying his face in his girlfriend's neck. Nope, the blue-eyed girl answered cheerfully, not even thinking of being offended anymore. Or maybe we should just forget about it. In response to her remark, the brunette only shook his head, moving away from her. Firstly, you will need an education anyway, and secondly, you will die of boredom at home. Well, Kachan doesn't die, the girl categorically did not want to study. If you want, you can study by correspondence, Madara suggested. Well, I'll think about it, Uzumaki said thoughtfully, thinking about calling all her friends to find out who was planning to study and how. After this phrase, she kissed her man lightly, but as soon as he wanted to deepen the kiss, she immediately jumped off his lap and playfully shook her finger. Winking cheerfully, Naruko ran into the bedroom, and Uchiha had no choice but to sigh heavily and return to work, which had no end in sight. After thinking for a bit, the blonde decided to call Sasuke first, and then the others. As it turned out, her best friend also decided to study by correspondence. Shikamaru made this decision together with him, who would doubt it? Karen, Ino, Sai is still thinking, as is Gaara, but after tearful requests not to abandon her, Sabaka no, said that he will probably still study by correspondence. Chuji, Kiba and Hina-chan will also study. Everyone else will be in the daytime, although as Sakura said, she would gladly study by correspondence, but alas, there is no way to become a doctor. Mada Ar. Uzumaki shouted loudly so that she could be heard in the next room. I will be attending the correspondence course. Okay, but by whom? Was heard in response. I don't know yet, but I'll decide soon. Just at that moment, a message came from Kiba with an offer to go for a walk with him and Akamaru. Since Naruto was bored, she agreed without much hesitation and began to get dressed. Considering that it was summer now, she got dressed quickly and galloped into the hallway. I went for a walk. That's all Uchiha heard, and then the front door slammed. She didn't go for a walk with anyone, or where, or how long. In general, there was zero information, and such a jealous person, and paranoid in this regard, as Madara could not leave all this like that. In the end, he dialed the phone number of his sweetheart. When the familiar melody of a phone call sounded somewhere from the bedroom, the man growled irritably and decided that he would wait an hour and a half. If the girl didn't return within that time, he would sound the alarm and start asking everyone where his property had gone. He also really hoped that she had gone out with her girlfriends and certainly not with her male friends. The reason for all this was already running to meet her friend, not even thinking about the problems and the fact that she forgot her phone. When a guy with strange tattoos on his cheeks in the form of red fangs and a huge dog appeared in the blonde's field of vision, she began to happily wave her hand. Hello? Running up to her friend, Uzumaki hung on his neck. Hey, is it just me or have you gained weight? Instead of greeting, Inuzuka said, for which he received an elbow in the stomach from the girl who had already freed him. Seems, she answered offendedly and demonstratively turned her head to the side. Come on, Uzumaki, I love you, the guy said, chuckling. Kami, don't let Madara hear you, Namikaze said cheerfully, no longer at all offended. I'm afraid, Kiba playfully waved his hands in the air. If I were you, I would be afraid, the blonde said slyly, stroking the dog walking next to her. You, glory to Kami, are not in my place. In response to this remark, the blonde only chuckled, and then began to cheerfully broadcast the news of her life and ask about everything that happened to the brown-haired man over the past week. Afterwards they somehow unexpectedly wandered into a park, where they walked until the evening. Then there was a cafe, but only after they took Akamaru to the guy's house. Naruto somehow forgot that her man has a jealousy bug, and also that she forgot her phone. I'll be needed, will call. That's exactly what she decided, distracted for a second from the fascinating conversation with her friend. Madara, meanwhile, couldn't find a place for himself, and was pacing around the apartment, every now and then breaking into an irritated roar. Uzumaki, at 8 o'clock in the evening, was still not home, and she didn't have her phone with her. As a result, he had to call all her friends and acquaintances, until one of her friends, Hinata Hyuga, didn't tell him that she was going to go for a walk with Kiba-kun. After finding out the address of this Kiba-kun, and receiving advice that they were most likely either in the park with Akamaru, or in the cafe, Danju, which was located near the park and in which they all liked to be when they were near the Inuzuka house. Without thinking, Uchiha threw on a light jacket, since it was already chilly outside, and quickly walked towards the cafe he needed. He doubted that on such an evening, and even without a jacket, Uzumaki would be walking in the park. At least, he hoped that she still had some brains left, and she wouldn't be walking half-naked in such weather. He got to the place in the shortest possible time, after which he actively began to radiate a thirst for murder, since his sweetheart was sitting behind the glass wall of the cafe and chatting sweetly with some guy, laughing cheerfully and bending over the table, thereby opening a wonderful view of her fourth-size breasts. The verdict for Inuzuka was instantaneous execution. Having burst into the establishment, and ignoring the words of the waitress girl, Madara approached the table where this couple was sitting and stood behind his girlfriend, forcing the guy, who was drinking juice at that moment, to choke sharply and stare at the man with fear. Still, Madara was scary and terrible in anger, so such a reaction was quite understandable. Oh, Madara, what are you doing here? The girl turned around and was surprised, seeing her friend's strange reaction. I came for you, the brunette hissed or growled irritably. Eh? Why didn't you just call? In response to this phrase, the man demonstratively pulled out a cute little pink phone with a red spiral in the form of a keychain from his trouser pocket. Oops, was all the blonde could say, looking slightly guilty at her lover. And here we are, walking with Kiba. I see. Well, don't be jealous, Mada-ar, the blue-eyed girl drawled, noticing the withering look on her friend, who seemed to want to merge with the sofa he was sitting on. In response, Naruko received only an irritated look. After that, she was suddenly grabbed by the hand and pulled along. During all these actions, Uchiha managed to take out of his pocket, not the smallest amount of money, threw it on the table, and quickly walked towards the exit. Uzumaki only had time to shout, "Bye" to her friend, after which she found herself outside and shivered. It was cold. Almost immediately after this action, the jealous man's jacket fell on her shoulders, who pointedly did not look in her direction, simply stubbornly dragging the girl by the hand towards the house. "Ma-ad," she said guiltily, but seeing no response whatsoever, she flared up like a match. "Stop it already!" she screamed, tearing her hand from the strong grip. "I'm tired of you being jealous of me with every pull you meet, forbidding me to see my friends, controlling my every step worse than Tusan. I'm not your toy or property, Uchiha." "Shut up!" he barked, looking at his girlfriend with undisguised anger. "Shut up?" she repeated. "Shut up, then?" Uzumaki was already screaming, waving her arms. She was filled with resentment, anger, and disappointment. Why did this unbearable man distrust her so much? Why couldn't he just rely on her? Yeah, screw you. If that's the case, then I don't need this relationship, either love, nor dreams, nor you. Tears were already flowing from Naruko's eyes, and she could no longer hold them back. If you don't trust me so much, then it's all over between us. I don't want this. I don't want to live in eternal mistrust and jealousy. I'm tired of it. The girl threw the jacket off her shoulders and turned around to leave, putting an end to their relationship. Enough. She had enough. She would no longer tolerate this terrible mistrust, even if her heart was torn to pieces. No matter. She would survive. Probably. But before Uzumaki could leave, she was roughly grabbed by the shoulder and painfully pressed with her back to the nearest pole. As luck would have it, there were no people in this place now. They were alone and the only, dimly burning lantern for the nearest 10 meters. After that, she was roughly kissed, bitten until her lip bled. You won't leave me anymore, Uzumaki, the man said quietly, but that made it even more frightening. Probably for the first time in his life, Naruko was truly scared of Uchiha. So much so that goosebumps appeared on her skin, and her knees began to tremble treacherously. Before, she never understood why people were so afraid of him. Now she understands perfectly. You provoked me yourself, you linked your life with me, you made yourself mine. I didn't force you, he said, looking straight into the blue eyes. It was you who tied me to yourself like a nasty dog. And after all this, you want to just leave? Just by saying that. It's over. Madara became increasingly angry, expressing everything that had accumulated in him for a long time, everything that had irritated the cerebral cortex for so long, and that he had successfully ignored. The blonde was looking at him all this time and realized he's right. It was she who initiated this relationship. It was she who was always trying to make him pay attention to her, because it was Naruko who promised herself that she would always love this man, no matter how unbearable he was. So now, faced with the first difficulties of their relationship, she will simply give in. So, simply? Just walk away from the problem by lying to herself? By breaking her promise? She's an Uzumaki after all. Naruto Minato's daughter Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, the most wonderful people in the world, who always keep their promises. Could she betray them, herself and Madara, so easily? Madara, who really went against the norms of society, proved that he is reliable and can be relied upon, who only once told her about his love, but sincerely and without a drop of lies. No, she can't do that. She can't just run away from the problem, saying that she couldn't do anything else. She can. She definitely can. More precisely, they can. They are together, because Kachan always told her that the relationship this is the work of two, it is simple and without quarrels. Both must work on them and only then, both will be happy. The grip on his shoulder weakened, and Uchiha looked at Naruko with disappointed eyes. He would not let her go for himself, but to forcibly hold her close. No, for that he really loved this unbearable girl too much, who decided to play at love, not even knowing what it was. How he regrets at such moments that he is an Uchiha, someone who can love only once and for life. In any case, he is much stronger than these feelings. It will be necessary, we'll strangle them, we'll forget about the existence of a certain Uzumaki Naruto, too bright, but such a flighty girl. I'm sorry, he was brought out of his thoughts by the quiet voice of the blue-eyed girl and her sobs. Forgive me. I don't know anything about relationships, so sometimes I forget that it's work. And that it's not just you who has to work, but me too. I know that we're both at fault right now, so forgive me. It's just hard for me to understand you sometimes. Forgive me for being so willing to give in so easily. I love you so much. I really do. TCH, idiot, the man, who had already pulled himself together, sighs, pulling the stupid and frozen Uzumaki towards him. Yes, the girl obediently agrees. And, sorry about the jacket, in response to this remark, Madara only rolls his eyes, wondering where he sinned so much. However, his memory is too helpful in throwing up a lot of memories, and he prefers not to pay attention to it. Let's go, you'll freeze. Okay, just promise me something. What exactly? Don't be jealous of me and don't doubt me. If I'm with you, then I don't need anyone else, the girl tells him a little indignantly. But he knows for sure that he won't be able to help but be jealous of her. This makes a smile appear on his lips. Madara doesn't promise anything, because she is too beautiful and young, and many people want to take advantage of this, so he will be jealous and will simply try not to doubt her. However, these Uzumaki such windy, and Uchiha such jealous,